You ask by what authority? I say by using a perfect law. But in this case, to what end? Nothing, as no good has been accomplished or could be accomplished. Had I gone on determined to carry this out fully, what would have happened? The reaction to whom? To me. I know the law, and what I express returns to me as truly as I express it. Therefore, I express only the good, and the good returns to me only as good. You can readily see that had I persisted in the freezing, the cold would have reacted upon me long before I had accomplished the end, and would, in reaping the harvest of my desire, have been frozen. Whereas, if I express the good, I reap the harvest of my good eternally. My appearance in this room tonight may be explained in this way. In the little room where you left me, I held my body in the universal by raising its vibrations, and it returned to the universal, or as we say, returning it to the universal where all substance exists. Then, through my I am, my Christ consciousness, I held my body in my mind until its vibrations were lowered, and it took form right here in this room, and you could see it. Wherein is there any mystery? Am I not using the power or the law given me by the Father through the beloved Son? Is not this Son you and I and all mankind? Wherein lies a mystery? There is none. Consider the faith represented by the mustard seed. It comes to us from the universal through the Christ within, which has already been born within us all. As a minute speck, it enters through the Christ, our superconscious mind, the place of receptivity within ourselves. Then it must be carried to the mount or highest within ourselves, the very top of the head. It is held there. We must then allow the Holy Spirit to descend. Now comes the admonition, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy strength, and with all thy mind. Think, does the meaning come? Heart, soul, strength, mind? Is there anything to do at this point but to turn it all over to God, the Holy Spirit, the whole I Spirit in action? This Holy Spirit comes in many ways, perhaps as tiny entities tapping and seeking admittance. We must accept and allow this Holy Spirit to come in and unite with a minute point of light or seed of knowing, and revolve around it and adhere to it just as you saw the particles of ice adhere to the central particle. And it will grow in form, particle by particle, circle by circle, just as the ice. Multiply and express that seed of knowing until you are able to say to the mountain of difficulties, be thou removed and cast into the sea, and it will be done. Call this fourth dimension or whatever you wish. We call it God in expression, through the Christ in us. It is in this way the Christ was born. Mary, the great mother, perceived the ideal. The ideal was held in mind, then conceived in the soil of her soul, held for a time there, then brought forth or born as a perfect Christ child, the firstborn, the only begotten, the Son of God. He was nourished and protected, given the very best of the mother, watched over and cherished until he grew from childhood to manhood. It is thus the Christ comes to all of us, first as an ideal planted in the soil of our soul, the central part where God is, held in mind as the perfect ideal, then brought forth or born as the perfect child, the Christ consciousness. You who have seen what has been accomplished here, doubt your own eyes. I do not blame you. I get the thought of hypnotism from the minds of some. My brothers, is there one here who feels that he does not have the power to exercise every God-given faculty that he has seen brought forth tonight? Do you think for a moment that I am in any way controlling your thought or vision? Do you think that I could, if I would, cast an hypnotic spell over any or all of you? For did you not all see, is it not recorded in your own great book, that Jesus entered a room with the doors closed? He just came in as I have done. Do you think for a moment that Jesus, the great master and teacher, needed in any way to hypnotize? He used his own God-given power, as I have done tonight. Let me say that I have done nothing but what each one of you can do. Not only you, but every child that is or has been born into this world or universe has the same power to do just what you have seen accomplished this night. I wish to get this clearly before you, your minds. Let me also say that you are individuals, that you are not personalities, that you are free wills, not automatons. Jesus did not need to hypnotize, and we do not need to hypnotize. Doubt us if you wish, until you are fully satisfied as to our honesty. Put the idea of hypnotism away for the time, or at least let it lie passive until you have gone deeper into the work. All we ask is that you keep an open mind. Next chapter. As the next stage of our journey was to be in the nature of a side trip, we left the main part of our outfit and the next morning proceeded on our way to a small village about 20 miles distance, with only Jast accompanying us. The trail was not of the best, and at times was very difficult to follow, as it wound through the dense forest peculiar to that country. We arrived at our destination just before sunset that evening, tired and hungry, as we had pushed on all day with only a short noonday half halt for lunch. The country in general was rough and uneven, and the trail seemed particularly unused. It was necessary to cut our way through occasional thickets of trailing vines. At each delay, Jas seemed impatient. We wondered at this, for he had previously seemed so poised. This was the first and only time during the 3.5 years he was with us that he was not the same cool, collected Jast that started with us. Later, we did not wonder at his unrest in the light of what transpired. We entered the little village of about 200 inhabitants 1/2 hour before sunset, and when it was known that Jast was with us, I believe every villager, old and young, and every pet and domestic animal came to greet us. While we were the object of more or less curiosity, it was immediately noted that Jast was the center of interest, greeted by all with the utmost reverence. After a few moments he said a word to the villagers, and all but a few returned to their usual duties. Jast turned to us and asked if we wished to go with him while the camp was being prepared for the night. 5 of our party said they were tired after the day's journey and wished to rest. The remainder of us followed Jast and the handful of villagers toward the far side of the clearing that surrounded the village. After crossing the clearing, we had gone but a short distance into the jungle when we came upon the form of a man lying upon the ground as though dead. That was our impression at first glance. At second glance, however, showed that the repose suggested calm sleep rather than death. We stood staring as though transfixed, for we saw that the figure lying on the ground was Jast.